The O-line passed a huge test on Monday night, and they did it with flying colors. We'll start by telling you how they did it. This is Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? I am your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, been covering the Pats for the past 16 years. Also, the co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles and a sports radio veteran. Welcome to Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in this country, your team every day. On today's episode, a trio of back-end defenders stood out and helped the Pats win decisively on Monday night. Also, we'll tell you why Monday night was one of Stefon Diggs' most impressive games as a Patriot, even though he finished with just 3 catches. But first, let's discuss the big boys up front for the offense getting the job done, especially given the difficult circumstances. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. A huge question heading into Monday night was, how would the Patriots' offensive line perform? No Will Campbell, no Jared Wilson. What would the offensive line look like? Would it actually hurt the offense? Would it hurt Drake Maye's performance? Would it get in the way of the 11th win of the season? Now, we know, because we are removed from the game, that the Patriots won their 11th game of the season. But this offensive line, I want to hone in after watching the All-22, because the offensive line on Monday night against the Giants responded. The offensive line on Monday night was really good. I said in the live post game, I don't want to get too far beyond what I see in real time, because sometimes you go back, you watch the film, and the struggles are real. Sometimes you overlook certain things. Sometimes you actually underrate certain players, certain performances. So I wanted to watch the film, and I wanted to keep a close eye on the offensive line. And I am here to tell you, I thought the offensive line was even better during the rewatch than I thought they were in real time. Now, when I go through the All-22, I grade every player. It's a very simple process, learning it from Greg Bedard, just his system. It's just a plus-minus system. When a player makes a good play, stands out, they get a plus. The opposite, they get a negative. My offensive line grades on Monday night really tell you what you need to know. Vidarian Lowe, replacing Will Campbell, finished with a +1 on the night. So the entire 60 minutes, he finished with a +1. That's how he graded out. Some plus, some minus. At the end of the day, he was a +1. Ben Brown, replacing Jared Wilson, was a +3. Garrett Bradbury was a net neutral, 0. Now, he had a tougher second half in the run game, but he was going against Dexter Lawrence, a big, imposing interior defensive lineman who is very good at football. So I will take a net neutral from Garrett Bradbury in that matchup. Mike Onwenu. We talked about Mike Onwenu playing some of his best football over the past couple of weeks, according to Pro Football Focus. Well, on Monday night, Big Mike was good again. Mike Onwenu, looking at my grading system, was a +3. Morgan Moses was a +4. Even Thayer Mumford, who came in just a few days ago, Thayer Mumford finished with a +1. So there wasn't a single offensive lineman that finished with a negative grade on Monday night. That's some really good football given the circumstances. I thought the offensive line, they were moving people in the first half. In the run game, they were getting the better of the Giants' defensive line consistently. And the two guys who stood out the most in the first half when the Patriots were running the ball well, again, Rhamondre Stevenson in the first half averaged 6 yards a carry. TreVeyon Henderson averaged 5.8 yards per carry in that first half. And when you look back, Morgan Moses and Mike Onwenu were really, really good on the right side of the offensive line. So shout out to those guys. I mean, I just thought that the run game was there because the big boys were moving the people up front. And they also held up in pass protection. Again, looking at the pressures. How many pressures did I have for each offensive lineman? I thought Vederian Lowe was the only guy that I had written down with multiple pressures given up. And Abdul Carter is a very, very tough responsibility for Vederian Lowe. He gave up 2 or 3 pressures. It wasn't like he was a disaster. You'll live with that. Mike Onwenu gave up 1 pressure. Morgan Moses gave up 1 pressure. Garrett Bradbury gave up 1 pressure. Ben Brown, I did not see anything on the rewatch. Now, maybe I missed something, but I had Ben Brown with a clean sheet in pass protection. Other players, TreVeyon Henderson gave up a pressure on a blitz. He got pushed back into the lap of Drake Maye. And I actually gave Drake Maye and Rhamondre Stevenson a pressure as well on a blitz that was not picked up. We'll talk about that more in a little while. Now, Vederian Lowe, speaking with the media on the pass protection, this was transcribed by Evan Lazar. Vederian Lowe said, quote, just getting off the ball. They make a lot of plays, just beating guys off the snap, especially when you're talking about Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, getting off the snap, staying inside out, allowing Drake Maye to step up, running them by, letting Drake Maye do what he does best. And we talked about this on the preview show. When you look at the New York Giants and you look at their pass rush, it's all about get off. It's all about get off. And they were the 10th best defense when it comes to get off in the pass rush, which means they're extremely explosive. We talked about dealing with that. We talked about using the Giants' aggression against them. And that's what Vederian Lowe is discussing when he says running them by, because they're going to get so far downfield. You don't have to block them and stop them in their tracks. You can push them even further down the field, which will allow Drake Maye to step up. And I saw that several times rewatching the game. Greg Bedard wrote about the pressure or lack thereof. According to Next Gen Stats, the Patriots allowed a pressure rate of 25%, which was the second lowest mark of Drake Maye's career. And from a clean pocket, Drake Maye completed 21 of 25 passes for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. You keep him clean, he kills the defense. And a great job by all of these guys up front. Great job being ready. It also helps when you have Drake Maye being decisive. He was great in his decision-making. I only had Drake Maye for 2.5 questionable decisions/plays. I thought the ball placement to TreVeyon Henderson on a 2nd and goal on their first drive, it was a swing pass. You probably remember it. It was a little low and behind TreVeyon Henderson. So I give Drake Maye a negative on that. 2nd and 11, first drive of the 3rd quarter, first drive of the 2nd half. Drake Maye took a deep shot to Kayshon Boutte, who was in double coverage when he had Hunter Henry wide open underneath. Unnecessary shot and could have taken the profit, went to his tight end. So I graded that as a negative play. And then you have the blitz that wasn't picked up. 2nd and 5 at the Giants' 14-yard line, 4th quarter, 4:40 left. And I give a 0.5 point towards Maye, a 0.5 point towards Rhamondre Stevenson. So negative 2.5 plays the entire night. If you're wondering, Drake Maye finished with 8+ plays. He was practically flawless in the first half. Pro Football Focus had him for 0 turnover-worthy plays. That's the first time that's happened since the Tennessee Titans game, according to Taylor Kyles of CLNS. And this was a coaching masterclass. A coaching masterclass. Josh McDaniels overloaded the Giants with all sorts of different formations and all sorts of different looks. Andrew Callahan posted, Patriots offense worked out of 11 personnel on roughly 2/3 of their snaps, but Josh McDaniels also used 7 other personnel groupings, including various 6 offensive lineman packages. And that doesn't, as Andrew Callahan points out, that doesn't reflect different player combinations within the personnel groupings. Like, all 3 wide receiver, 1 running back, 1 tight end groups, that's 11 personnel. But New England rotates its wide receivers for specific 11 personnel sub packages. So it's 8 different groupings, viewing players only as running back, fullback, tight end, wide receiver, offensive lineman. And when you watch the film, I watched it earlier today, Offensive line versatility. Thayer Munford out there as a sixth offensive lineman. Josh McDaniels at times would actually slide Vidarian Lowe to right tackle, and everybody would slide over one spot. They'd have a tight end set up at left tackle. Pretty fascinating. Shout out to Doug Marrone, Jason Hotailing, Robert Kugler. Your offensive line coaches obviously had these guys ready, and they were on the same page. The communication was great. And we discussed on the preview show, another part of this was the quick game. We spent a couple of seconds on it in the post game after Monday night. But Phil Perry, NBC Sports Boston, he wrote, according to Next Gen Stats, Drake Maye got rid of the ball in an average of 2.57 seconds, which was his quickest release time of the season. Get it out of his hands. We talked about it on the preview show. Taylor Kyles posted that Drake Maye was 12 for 15 for 66 yards and a touchdown on quick throws. He was 12 for 16 for 216 yards and a touchdown when he held the ball for at least 2.5 seconds. So getting rid of the football. Why was the offensive line so good against the Giants on Monday night? You give credit to the guys up front. They were ready to play. You give credit to the game plan and Josh McDaniels and the offensive line coaching. And you give credit to the overall execution. When you combine all three of those things, you get a really good football game from an offensive line that everybody was questioning before kickoff. All right, Stefon Diggs showed out in the second half without catching many footballs. We'll explain that and more next. This is Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Aura isn't your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when someone plugs it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. You can give this to your grandparents, parents, newlyweds, pretty much anyone who loves photos. And for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames, they sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show also by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you for making Locked On Patriots your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, to click that thumbs up. We always talk about it. Don't forget to like. That helps us with the algorithm. Don't forget to throw a comment in, your thoughts on the offensive line. And also subscribe as we march towards 8,000 subs. The first half against the Giants, after watching this game a second time, that was the best offensive half of the season in my mind. Now, why is that? It wasn't just the 30 points that they put up on the board. Of course, 7 of those points you can thank Marcus Jones. It was because when you look at the entire first half, every member of the offense that touched the field, I personally did not have one negative overall grade in the first half for anyone on offense. Everybody was at least a net neutral, if not a positive, in the first half. That is bananas. And I want to talk about Stefon Diggs. You can look at Stefon Diggs and say, what'd he finish with? 3 catches, 26 yards? Whoopity-doo. Well, I'm telling you, this is why it's so important for me to rewatch these games and to look at the all-22 perspective to see what guys are doing when they might not necessarily be getting the football or directly involved with the play. And watching Stefon Diggs in the second half, I thought he was excellent. First half, he was mostly quiet, but in the second half, I thought he was terrific with his overall game. You have the obvious, the 4th and 6 conversion. How many times have we seen Stefon Diggs do work on 3rd and 4th down, helping Drake Maye and the rest of his offense move those chains? We've seen it countless times this season. And again, we saw it on a 4th and 6. Gets open, no big deal. Move them chains. But here's where I draw the line with Stefon Diggs, and I say to myself, that was one of his best halves of football. And it wasn't because of his receiving. It was because of his blocking. I actually had Stefon Diggs for 4 really good blocks in the second half. And when you go back and you watch TreVeyon Henderson, late fourth quarter, the runs that we discussed in the live postgame following Monday Night Football, when you go back and you watch TreVeyon Henderson's late game success, I would like you to watch Stefon Diggs on those plays. He is responsible, or at least partially responsible, for at least 2 of those runs because of his blocking, getting downfield, and helping, making the initial contact within 5 or 6 yards to spring TreVeyon Henderson free. And so for a guy who is known as a diva, like a lot of number 1 receivers are, a lot of questions about what motivates Stefon Diggs. Is he really a team leader? All those things that were discussed before the season. On a night like Monday night, when Stefon Diggs is not a huge part of the receiving game plan, when he has 3 catches for 26 yards, I think it says everything you need to know about where Stefon Diggs is mentally and how he has bought in to Mike Vrabel and he has bought into this locker room, and he is absolutely a leader because on a night, 13 straight games, coming off an ACL injury and surgery. On a night, he caught only 3 footballs. He's out there blocking his tail off in the second half, and that hasn't always been the case consistently this year, to be fair. But I'm talking about Monday night, and he was blocking on Monday night. And you love to see it when he's quiet as a receiver, that he is embracing that role and he's out there doing what his teammates need him to do. Kayshon Boutte, meanwhile, was even better. I thought Kayshon Boutte was terrific in this game. And you can look back, again, the easy stuff, right? The touchdown. That was a great catch. But the 2nd and 21 route that he ran to help get it to, 3rd and 8, I believe, when Drake Maye inevitably hit Kyle Williams for the touchdown downfield. That was a great route by Kayshon Boutte. Dan Orlovsky on Twitter actually posted a video and mentioned how great the route was from Kayshon Boutte on that play. So the route running has been much better. Obviously, he's scoring touchdowns. But much like Stefon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte was run blocking. He was fully engaged, and he looked like a legitimate number 2 receiver yet again on Monday night. Meanwhile, let's talk about the running backs. The snaps. Now, we understand that against Cincinnati, Rhamondre Stevenson's first game back, the split was more dramatic than I thought it would be. TreVeyon Henderson played, I think, about 65% of the plays or so. Well, against the Giants on Monday night, Rhamondre Stevenson was again the leader in the clubhouse when it comes to snap count, snap rate at running back. Rhamondre Stevenson finished with 58% of the snaps. TreVeyon Henderson played 49% of the snaps, and that is exactly what I expected upon Rhamondre Stevenson's return. We talked about this idea that TreVeyon Henderson, should he be the lead back? And I think we all understand what TreVeyon Henderson's role is. He's been much better lately. He's giving you some of that explosivity. Part of the reason why he was so good late in the game against the Giants is because he was not overused early. You kept him somewhat fresh, and I'm not surprised. 50-50, 55-45, 60-40. It's going to be bouncing around those numbers. So don't be surprised when TreVeyon Henderson plays 49% of the snaps. It's more than what he was getting before Rhamondre Stevenson's injury, which is the good news. But ultimately, we've discussed their role, and their role is their role. And at 11-2, I can't yell too much about what they're doing going into these games. So Stevenson at 58%, Henderson at 49%. What happened in the second half? The run game, especially in the third quarter, wasn't as good as it was in the first half. I talked about it for a minute or so in the live post game. Again, this is why we do the rewatch. And I wanted to pay specific attention to the run game in the second half and see what happened. Well, there were 2 plays on the running backs. I thought Rhamondre Stevenson had bad vision on one of his runs. I thought TreVeyon Henderson had bad vision on one of his runs. So 2 of the bad running plays in the second half were on the running backs. I thought Garrett Bradbury, again, had a pretty rough second half, and he gave up a couple of plays in the run game. So Garrett Bradbury had to be better. The Patriots, when you look at, what they were running up against, and this was my feeling in real time watching the game on Monday night, and it was confirmed by watching the film over again. The Giants in the third quarter, they played a decent amount of one high safety. So they were playing more guys in the box. They were playing the run, and the Patriots ran into that stacked box a few times, which hurt the run game. And then you had kind of sporadic misses in the blocking from Hunter Henry missing a block. Mac Hollins missed a big block. Morgan Moses missed a block or 2. So that's why they weren't as good on the ground in the second half until TreVeyon Henderson got it going. And when you look at TreVeyon Henderson late in the game and how they got it going, they were blocking it better, and TreVeyon Henderson individually made some really nice moves. By the way, Pop Douglas, he played 34% of the snaps against the Giants, and when you look back at that game, Pop Douglas individually was to blame for 2 or 3 bad run plays. He just whiffed on his blocks, and that's the biggest question about Pop Douglas, and that will continue to limit his potential. It will continue to limit his snaps because the Patriots cannot trust Pop Douglas to consistently make blocks at the line of scrimmage or even within 5 yards or so. So he missed a couple of blocks. Not great in the run game for Pop Douglas. But overall, it was fun watching the film. All right, finally, we saw something that I thought we'd see much earlier this season. What was it? We'll find out next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NFL Sundays, they move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. And FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Again, the website is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and well, so can you. In case you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're getting this podcast elsewhere. We love you. We appreciate you. I thought the defense of the Patriots this season would be led by their cornerbacks. The idea of Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis on the outside, Marcus Jones at the nickel and the slot. I thought the cornerbacks would be the story of the defense. That has not been the case, really. The story of the defense has been the defensive line. Think about it. Milton Williams, his huge impact. Christian Barmore playing well for most of this season. Harold Landry's start before he got banged up. Kayvon Chason had a stretch of 7 or 8 games where he was a monster. Even the linebackers, Robert Spillane, had a stretch of really, really good football. Monday night, Christian Ellis, yes, he was all over the place. But I am here to tell you that on Monday night against the Giants, the cornerbacks were the strength of this defense overall. This was a defense going against Jackson Dart in his rookie season that decided to blitz a lot early, then not blitz much at all in the second, third quarters, in most of the fourth quarter, and then they blitzed a lot late. So they blitzed early and they blitzed very, very late. You go back to that last possession for the Giants, Zach Core, defensive coordinator, or at least defensive play caller with Terrell Williams out, he was sending dudes on that final possession. But Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, all three of those guys I thought were really good when I watched this game back. Christian Gonzalez had sticky coverage multiple times against Darius Slayton, who is the best wide receiver, I think. I know Wan'Dale Robinson has put up stats and has more targets, but Darius Slayton to me is a more dangerous receiver because his ability on the boundary. And Christian Gonzalez was sticky against Darius Slayton. And you look at, the stick that Christian Gonzalez put on Wan'Dale Robinson. You all know what I'm talking about. Christian Gonzalez coming downhill and smoking Wan'Dale Robinson on one play. So I thought Christian Gonzalez was really good. Carlton Davis, who was excellent against Cincinnati, probably his best game as a Patriot against the Bengals. He followed that up with another good game against the Giants. Multiple pass breakups. He had the almost interception, should have had it really, on the sideline against Theo Johnson. He also had that 3rd and 3 stop where he forced a 3-yard loss to running back Tyrone Tracy. Jackson Dart, the Giants, they had the Patriots in a blitz look, and Jackson Dart threw it to Tyrone Tracy, trying to get a little quick screen action, and Carlton Davis read it beautifully, came downhill, and just dismissed Tyrone Tracy. So Carlton Davis was really good, and Marcus Jones was all over the place. I personally had him for 4+ plays in the second half. I thought his coverage was mostly on point. The touchdown that the Giants got on a screen pass, some of that was on Marcus Jones. Took a bad angle along with Jalen Hawkins. And you could argue Christian Gonzalez also could have played that a little bit better, but we're talking about the entire night. And Marcus Jones, especially in the second half, I thought was really good in this game. And his coverage was there. So the defensive backs, they stood up and they played some great football against the Giants. Let's talk about the interior defensive line. I am a big believer in Corey Durden. We've talked about him multiple times. I am part of the fan club. And I thought he was, again, really good against the Giants. And Mike Vrabel mentioned him in the postgame. So Corey Durden was good. Joshua Farmer, I also thought was good. And if I'm the Patriots defensive staff, if I'm Mike Vrabel, I'm looking at guys to back up Christian Barmore and Milton Williams. I'm beginning with Corey Durden and Joshua Farmer. I think those guys, and of course, Kyrie's Tonga when he's available. But I think Corey Durden and Joshua Farmer, who did not play against Cincinnati, Joshua Farmer was out of that game. I think those two guys, those two young guys, have consistently made some plays. I'm not sold on Eric Gregory. I still haven't seen enough from him. I'm not really sold on Jeremiah Farms. So if you're talking about 5 interior defensive linemen, I'm talking about Milton Williams. I'm talking about Christian Barmore. I'm talking about Kyrie's Tonga. I'm talking about Corey Durden and Joshua Farmer. Those are the 5 guys I want to see out there on the field. The Patriots continue to have some issues with the 4-man pass rush. They did not get much pressure at all against Jackson Dart. There were some coverage pressures and coverage sacks, but they're not getting those quick pressures with the 4-man rush, and that leads them to blitzing a decent amount. I did find it interesting that Elijah Ponder, who, by the way, wasn't very good on the edge against the run, he had been before Monday night, but I thought Elijah Ponder moving inside, the Patriots moved him inside a few times to use him as a pass rusher, and he actually got home a couple of times. So maybe Elijah Ponder taking that Keon White role that we thought Keon White would have before he fell off a cliff right before the season late in camp. So an interesting wrinkle, Elijah Ponder moving inside from time to time. The second half run defense, I wondered during the live post game why there were some explosive / good runs for the Giants in the second half after the Patriots doing a pretty darn good job in the first half. Well, looking back at the game, again, edge integrity was an issue. Elijah Ponder, K'Lavon Chaisson were 2 culprits multiple times in the game where they gave up the edge. And really what it came down to, and this is kind of what I thought in real time, was that the Patriots had a huge lead and they didn't want to give up big plays. So they played a decent amount of too high safety in the second half. and the Giants had 2 or 3 really good runs against 2 high safety looks. So they had the advantage at the line of scrimmage. They took advantage of that, and they ended up having a couple of really good runs against 2 high safeties. So it was a mix of edge integrity or lack thereof. Eric Gregory at times and others kind of getting washed out in the middle. The linebackers getting washed out at the second level. But most of all, the Patriots playing those 2 high safety looks and the Giants taking the yards when they could get them, which was by design from the Patriots defense. So lots of thoughts. Offensive line, offensive, defensive thoughts. Fun game to watch over again on the All-22 as the Patriots improve to 11-2. That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at NickCRadio. And don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. And for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler the Madman Rowland and Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a fantastic day, and we will see you tomorrow.